Maria, cap and trade it's a great tool. I mean, there's no question it's a great tool. But the problem is as you know, as you've pointed out with your clear legislation, that you have to have tougher efficiency. You have to have higher fuel taxes. You have to have standards that are sustainable. Things like green research programs and that all has to come together to put together a comprehensive program that works. I got to tell you, NRDC's Dale Burke was very vocal on the idea that cap and trade is just not enough. So you've come up with the Carbon Limits and Energy for America Renewal. Tell us about it.
Well, it's really simple in the concept of we want to just take the top 2,000 people who are putting fossil fuel into our economy and get them to start gradually reducing that and have an auction to do so, but give a rebate to consumers who are already paying high energy costs.
Have you concluded that cap and trade just isn't enough? In other words, you had all of the progressives that, were trying to embrace cap and trade, and they started taking a look at it and saying that it's really not sustainable. Are you of that opinion?
Well, I think the issue is I'm not for the big trading platforms that we've had. We've had such volatility in these other markets, some in energy, but in housing and everything else, created by futures. And if you're going to have a trading platform that is going to just drive up the cost of carbon artificially, carbon credits, then we don't need that. So I don't want to get in the same mess that, credit default swaps and, all of these tools that aren't going to give us the predictability that we need in moving forward and getting off of carbon.
In other words, government has to take more active role than just setting carbon prices. Energy prices, higher energy prices, sure, they're going to motivate people to change their behavior, but it's just not enough. I mean, I think that's the way that this.
Well, I think Americans right now would do other things if they had choices. They don't like when fuel prices spike, and they certainly don't like the pollution that comes from it, but they got to have alternatives, and they got to be cost affordable. And so this is about, our bill has been endorsed by AARP. They're a group of people that you wouldn't normally think of on an energy policy or an environmental policy, but they know that in this mix, seniors are paying too high of energy costs, and that if we want to get off carbon, you got to protect seniors as we do it.
Okay, so the key, the magic number is what 350 parts per million. Is that is that about right for carbon in the atmosphere?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where your goal. That's your goal to get there, and the way you want to do it is by gradual slices. For example, you have 20% lower global warming pollution by say 2020, and that's relative to 2005 numbers. Is that right?
Right. You want to do it in a gradual way, but start the process. Last week, the Saudi Arabian government said we were at peak oil, or we were going to be at it pretty soon,
right.
And that they wanted to diversify their economy. And if the Saudi Arabian government is saying they want to diversify their economy off of fossil fuel, by gosh, we ought to be able to diversify our economy.
That's a pretty good indicator when the people who have more oil than any place in the world say two things. Number one, we're running out of oil. Number two, we have to get ahead of the program and come up with alternative programs. So isn't this also part of an industry? I mean, isn't this something that we ought to look at? You had Van Jones out of California that's been talking about the idea of green jobs forever, and isn't it time that I've looked at your legislation. I don't see a part in there, maybe I'm just missing it, that really emphasizes the need to expand kind of that green economy.
Well, we basically, of the auction that is created, so basically oil companies, people producing fossil fuel would have to buy a permit to continue to do so. That revenue, we think, is what would help us stimulate R&D investment and transition dollars to help states who are impacted because maybe they are heavy in fossil fuel economies. This is a $6 trillion industry opportunity, new energy, and that's in energy efficiency, that's in these various new sources of energy. And if we in the United States fall behind, the jobs will go to other countries, to Asia, to Scandinavia.
Right.
And this is something that
it's already happening, isn't it? I mean, aren't we already losing that edge?
Well, you could look at specific sectors and say that's true. You could say that the Danes are better at wind, and you could say that that Asians have produced fuel efficient cars. That China right now is got the edge on the battery production, even though the battery technology was really U.S. technology. So, yeah, we got to get going.
The common sense thing we should be doing as government is already being met with the same thing we saw with healthcare. You've got all the lunatics coming out. They look like lunatics, but they're really not. They're paid for by the Exxons and the huge energy industry. Is the money behind the people who show up with signs and placards and town hall meetings. Aren't you getting ready to face that the same way that the healthcare industry faced the fake grassroots movement that was paid for by the industry?
Well, I think a lot of my colleagues on both the Democrat and Republican side of the aisle see this as a jobs issue now. They, whether you want to debate the science or not about climate, they realize two things. They realize that where we're going on fossil fuels is unsustainable. And they realize that fossil fuels are causing, levels of pollution that we also can't sustain, whether they want to attribute it to the end result of climate impact or not. But no doubt there's going to be people who are going to try to say, no, let's not do anything. But, I would say to them that, the roller coaster ride that we're going to be on as an economy for the next 30 years, if we don't get off of oil, is just going to wreak havoc. And we can avoid that by moving in a more predictable direction.
I don't know if you saw the number, but 4%, there's only 4% of the American public that feels like we don't need health care reform right now. But nevertheless, the Democrats, in their effort to be, nice and reach across the aisle, are killing the party. They're killing. I'm telling you, Senator, I'm seeing this. They call me, they email me. Everybody that does progressive networking, they see this. They're killing the Democratic Party because they don't have the guts to pull the trigger on some. I just can't even quantify how bad it is. Just tune into Jon Stewart late night comedy. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Well, I think that I hear a lot from people in my state that they're very concerned about the economy. They're very concerned about unemployment. They're concerned about getting access to capital to small business. And they're very concerned about the high cost of health care. And if you do nothing and the price just keeps going up, then that's not a solution.
If it fails, Democrats better start rebuilding. I mean, that's how serious it is out there. I don't think in the Beltway they feel that right now. But I'm going to tell you something. I see it. We everybody in this business sees it. This is it for the Democrats.
Listen, it's these things are tough, and you get a group of people, in the Senate it's 100, and I can tell you they all have 100 different opinions. In the House, it's a larger number, and it's hard for everybody to get together. But you're right, this is a battle line stance, and people need to put their shoulder to the wheel and turn it.
What do you think the Republicans would have done if they would have had the kind of majority we had in the House and the Senate? I mean, what do you think would have happened? I mean, would we still be talking about issues like this?